Innovation, imagination, wonder. These are just some of the words used to describe Dr. Harvey Passes. Dr. Passes explores interesting people and ideas that will stimulate you. He questions the people who develop, create, and employ novel concepts in business and everyday lives. He especially loves to speak with successful people. How did they do it? How can you do it too? So let's join Dr. Harvey Passes in his quest of wonder and curiosity as we watch Dr. Harvey Passes Presents.
Have I got a wonderful show for you today. Something momentous happened recently in the world of wine and in the world of Long Island wine. You see, there is an individual who is extraordinarily influential and came to Long Island some months ago and tasted our wonderful wines. And after tasting the wines, he just expressed absolute joy and praise at the wines that come from our wonderful soil made by our wonderful Long Islanders. And I asked, as one of these people who he bestowed wonderful accolades on, and I asked this gentleman, whose name is Roth, who you'll learn more about in a few moments, but if you've seen the show in the past, he has been a guest on. He's no stranger to you. And we're going to speak to him about his wines and a little bit about who this individual was who came down to talk. So first, let's welcome Roth. Roman, always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for coming from Sagaponack in the Bridgehampton area of Long Island and the South Fork and the Hamptons to come down and visit with us. And let me just tell the folks a little bit about what I'm talking about and why you're beaming, why you look like a Cheshire cat from Alice in Wonderland. There is an individual called Robert Parker who has a publication called The Wine Advocate, and some people have equated him with, what's the gentleman's name again, Roman, who handles the Fed? Greenspan. Some people have acquainted him with the wine market the way Alan Greenspan is with the rest of the economies of the world. And if Robert Parker says that this wine is a terrific wine, everyone throughout the world buys it. If he says sold out, if he says this wine stinks, you may as well take up another profession because you're dead. Is that true?
No, you're not dead. It's like, because it certainly helps you to be on the map. If you rate something in the high 90s, the wine is sold out, you become instantly a collector's item, a must-have in wine cellars.
Absolutely.
And if it doesn't, there are still many other ways, of course, and it doesn't always mean everything he says is correct.
Right.
When he says no to a certain wine. But in general, he certainly is very influential, and you can argue is that a good thing, because people change their wine style to please his palate. And so there's sort of a globalization in character sometimes, where you can't tell if
Parkerization.
The wine is the wine from Australia, is it from the Rhone? Or
Doesn't matter anymore. It loses its character.
Yeah.
And that I don't like.
That's
I don't
the
like
danger
it part.
Character. But he is an amazing, I think, he's very consistent, so that you certainly can use it for consistent reference.
As a good guide.
And from that point of view, I think he certainly has, that's why he has so much respect, because he is very meticulous. And even David Schilknecht, who came here to do the ratings, I have never seen a more hard-working taster, I must say, or more precise taster, who really about notes and about, again, it's about logistics. When you taste hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wines, that you just not start mingling them up and mixing things up. So it was certainly interesting to see the dedication to detail from a taster.
Okay, let's talk about Long Island wines. By and large, this 9-page review, 9-page article on Long Island wines, what did basically he say?
Well, most important is it's the outlook from him was, and it's in every region you have a pyramid. You make great wines, and there is the bigger part at the bottom where there is okay wine made in jug wine, whatever, $2 jug, that kind of thing. And his outlook, for the first time, such an important publication has looked at the peak, at the top wines. and said, if you're looking at the top Long Island make wines, they can stand up to the best wines in the world, and has a future to make even greater wines, because we're still a fairly young industry.
34 years.
And only since the last 10 years are there really consistent qualities coming, from certain vineyards.
Mm-hmm.
And so he looked at that. He didn't let his whole criticism being influenced by all the negative things, let's say certain wineries or Finger Lakes or bad vintages or whatever. He really focused at the great things that can happen from New York and from Long Island, and those are excellent. And I think he totally endorsed it, and so New Yorkers can be very proud of what's happening.
That's terrific. Let's talk about you. He gave you, well, first, so that people should understand that Roman is a very unusual individual, because not only does he make wines at his parent winery, I guess, best way to put it, his winery, which is the Wolfer Estate Winery, but he also makes wines for a number of other winemakers throughout our region. Excuse me. And those wines are really delicious. They're really, best word I could say is delicious. No. Wonderful. That's a great way to put it. So he got sick and tired of helping everyone else and put everybody on the map. And he said, I'm going to make my own wines. Now, he has been making his own wines, but it's for the company that he works for.
Well,
you've been making
statement. It's not sick and tired. I'm very enthusiastic about our region.
Better way of phrasing it.
And where I work has shown that we can reach the highest peaks and consistency. I think that's one thing that I've brought, or Wolfer Estate has brought to this region, is consistency. Everybody can make good wine in a good year, but to make good wine in a difficult year is what sets us apart.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most important part. You don't want to be inconsistent. And having that seen, and having seen vineyards, and wherever I work wherever I do make wine, there has to be a commitment to quality, a detail orientation, that you go the extra mile. And as I'm finally helped create, I've worked at Marta Clara Vineyards, the first 4 vintages I made, where there's certainly very consistent vineyard quality. Shin Estate Vineyards, Roanoke, Wolfer is of course coming from since '92. I'm here, so I have a history. I'm getting a little gray finally. But
I love your New York, Long Island accent.
Yes, exactly. My Long Island accent is fluent. But I finally felt, knowing now the industry, knowing the vineyards on Long Island, I felt that it was time to create my own and create something very special. And as it came out, this is the first vintage that is now being launched, the 2001 the Grapes of Roth.
Grapes of Roth, I love that.
And it got the highest rating.
Yeah, I see that here. Wow, he gave you a 92.
A dream come true.
That's terrific. And yet 2002, he gave you a 92. Don't go into prices or anything like that. I'm not interested in that. But and a 91. So I think that's absolutely amazing for you to have received that. I'm not going to go through the review right now because nobody wants to sit and listen to me read. But nonetheless, the accolades and the description and the adjectives that are in here about your wine is it's a stunning amalgamation of fresh plum. I am reading it. Dried cranberries, soy, Syrah-like bacon fat, beef marrow, blood pudding, and iodine. If someone is not into wine, they're going to go, what? But it's just a very complex kind of wine that he feels it belongs on the right bank of the Bordeaux, which is an amazing thing to say since it's on the south bank of the Peconic. But this is just terrific. Let's taste. What do you want to taste first?
We probably should taste the Pinot Noir first because it is a lighter, more elegant style of wine.
Oh, look at the color. What year is this?
This is a 2002.
Wow, the color. Wow, it looks like it's got a little bit of age on it from this color, huh?
Well, it has a little age, but again, Pinot Noir, it's not about black. And just because sometimes Pinot Noirs from the New World are very dark, that doesn't mean if you like to make wines in a traditional way, it's not about the color that it's black. To me, it's important that there is texture, that it is ripe, that there is a lot of fruit.
Let me make a comment. Not tasting anything, just right now sticking my nose in it. I'm surprised. I've had your Pinots in the past, but I'm surprised. This is more reminiscent to me of something that's a little bit more Burgundian. I'm getting now, and this is a compliment, a comment that I'm making. And I hope you take it as such. I love a little bit of that barnyardiness. I love that. That to me is very Burgundian. That's all I can say.
Well,
I'm sensing that.
What the key is, and why I make the wines the way I make them, is you want to get an earthiness, you want to get a richness in your wine that you don't get when you start making commercial wine, where you make 500,000 cases of wine, where you have to reach sort of a mediocreness, basically, almost, because you will sell it in all the different states, and not everybody likes the depth, the intensity. So as a result, you can't make the best wine possible. And making these small lots here, there were like 140 cases made. Of this one, I'm making only 200 cases. You can reach to a level of a maceration, a tannin level, an earthiness, a structure that you can't reach in normal wine making. And by making that, I think it is something unique you can't find. It's making a statement about traditional style winemaking in our region here on Long Island is very suitable to that. So not trying to make wines that taste like Californian wines, you try to make something that tastes like Long Island with a very traditional background, and I think that's the key to
There's
success.
no question about that. This definitely, if I were to close my eyes and smell, I would not say California at all. Definitely not. There's no question. I would say European. Yeah. This is wonderful, wonderful.
We've done many blind tastings, and it stands up to the best, to the biggest names.
Oh. Wow. Fat. It just got oodles of complexity, and it just lingers on your tongue. And wow, it's very subdued. The fruit is not a forward fruit wine.
What's an elegance? I think you can always make a wine that jumps out of the glass, tastes like pineapple and tropical fruit flavors.
Fruit bomb.
Yeah, but it overbears the food. It overwhelms your palate, so you can't really enjoy a whole glass of it, a whole bottle of it. And here it has to be an intensity with this elegance, and as a result, that's the wine that, again, is food friendly, it's pleasing you, it animates your stomach. If you want to eat something, because there's a little bit of acidity in there as well.
I want duck with this.
Duck, it would cut right through the fat of the
Absolutely.
duck.
As you're talking, and I got the flavor, and the flavor is still sitting in my mouth. I'm trying to think, what would go well with this? And I'm just thinking to myself, a lightly sauced duck.
Yeah. Also,
lightly sauced
turkey, I think at Thanksgiving, for example, when all the dishes are very rich and heavy, you don't want some sweet, heavy, rich wine. You want something that is intense, that has a bit of acidity, that has a tannin structure to go against the whole rich dishes of a Thanksgiving meal, for example.
Right, absolutely. This is just a marvelous, marvelous wine. And this wine, you were given among some of the highest honors on this wine as well.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Just amazing.
And it is not an easy variety. Everybody has probably seen the movie Sideways, so there were all the Pinot lovers out there. But it's not an easy variety. It's thin-skinned. And as Long Island is on the same latitude as Madrid, Naples, so we're much further south than, let's say, Burgundy. It is a very fine balance where color, for example, as you mentioned beforehand, if you would pick it earlier, you would have more color, but then you would have greener flavors. You wouldn't have the texture, the velvet.
So you're sacrificing
flavors.
one for the other.
And so you have to adapt to your own regional need. And just because color is superficial, it's something that you just see and gives an impression instantly of richness when it's dark. But ultimately, the character is in the wine itself, in the flavor.
If I looked at this wine, I would think that this wine was at least a 10-year-old bottle of wine. Just by looking at it. Just by looking, because the color looks like it's a more mature wine. No question about it. But then you smell it and you go, my God.
And it has a great aging potential. Our 93 Pinot Noir is still drinking beautiful. And so, again, it's not just color is not everything. It's the same way sugar is not everything. People sometimes, they look at sugar just because in hot climates you get so much sugar because of the dehydration. But as a result, you don't always get the balance.
Right.
So that's not how. The thing is to make wine about the flavor and the ripeness of the seeds, the skins, again, the flavors have to be ripe.
I take this wine to be a wine which shows the master's ability. See, Richie can grow it in the field, your vineyard manager, but then you got to start off with good grapes. Because if you've got garbage grapes, you're going to get garbage wine. You can struggle all you want, but but if you've got good grapes, and then from there, Now it becomes a matter of you sculpting it and shaping it and turning it into something that's just elegant and beautiful. And you did.
But even there, if you're a winemaker who just waits for the grapes to come in, you cannot make a great decision. You have to go out. You have to see how does the year look? What has the weather pattern be? How is the physiological maturity of the grapes, and how strong are they? And we do berry samples. We for example do the average weight of a berry. So when it rains, you see the berry getting heavier or not. So you see, is the vine still breathing? Is there still photosynthesis going on? Is there still an active plant that can mature further? And that's what I do a lot. I go out and again, because of Richie Pisacano, we work hand in hand in this. You can't, if you have a beer drinking vineyard manager, he has no interest in really how well is this wine turning out now. You have to have somebody who's interested in
it's
the
good for hops and rice and barley,
but not for grapes. And,
right.
And that's where we work very well together and have built a consistency with whatever we've done so far.
Right, well, you've been working with him for years.
Yeah.
Trying to get him to come down and be on the show to talk about it, but I'm telling you, Richie, if you're listening, show this tape to him. Richie, we want you on the show, Richie Pisacano, so we can talk all about what goes on out in the vineyard. Don't be squeamish. Come on down.
What's important, though, is that, again, a vineyard you can't neglect it. You have only one chance a year to make it right. And I think that's one of his greatest strengths, that he does not go to cocktail parties necessarily.
Are you defending him now?
I'm defending
You're
him.
defending him now. All right, let's try the next wine. That's his greatest strength. I have friends who have 2 harvests a year.
Uh-huh. 2 harvests in India or where?
No. One harvest is in northern hemisphere, and the other is southern hemisphere.
Uh-huh.
For example, Robert Pepe, a friend of mine, he makes wines for various companies in Argentina and in the United States. So he gets 2 harvests a year, for example.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I've done that year. I worked in Australia.
So there you go.
And then the next year I worked in Germany, so I was doing it. It was two crazy seasons.
2 crazy seasons a year. Terrific. Now, look, the color is different on this. Now,
yeah.
this wine is the wine that got rated the top wine.
This was the 91. That is my 2001, the Grapes of Roth, my first wine.
I remember when you started doing this, you were telling me all about this. How many did you produce? How many cases?
We made only 200 cases, 2,400 bottles, and the phone has been going crazy. That's what was so amazing, that this is the launch now, and has got instantly a great recognition and endorsement.
Mm. The nose is outstanding. I'm getting, give me a minute. Blackberry? Am I getting lavender?
Lavender. You get some wonderful leather, and I mean Hermes
smoked
leather.
Bacon? Hermes leather.
Not a cheap leather.
Not a cheap. No, am I getting a hint of smoked bacon here?
You get this toastiness. There's a fine. It's a whole layer of structure that
oodles
that is in the wine.
Oodles. I'd be very hard put to figure out where this wine comes from if I didn't know. I'd be very hard put. Just the nose, and look at the legs on this thing here.
Yeah, it's a big. Again, it starts all in the vineyard, where you literally expose every cluster of fruit. You go with a very low yield. Every cluster is exposed, so you get sunlight from all 4 sides, so that you get a very even maturing of each berry. Mm-hmm. So that was the first important part. Leaf removing, the timing when you do it, the same way when you drop the fruit, in order to maximize the energy of the plant to go into the remaining clusters. Mm-hmm. And again, the timing is so crucial. Every winery does this, and every winery does leaf removing, cluster thing, but if you do it 2 or 3 weeks too late, you don't get the benefit.
Right.
And so it's all about logistics and what can you do.
It's like a dechem, having multiple harvests.
Pickings, for example. And when you make only 200 cases, it's a small field, you can do it exactly that day when you feel today, I think, is the best date.
Did you function as your vineyard manager for this? Or did Richie work on this with you?
No, actually, the first fruit was bought at Marta Clara Vineyards.
Oh, so that's where the fruit came from.
And the second, the 2002, bought from Sam McCullen, the vineyard manager from Lens Winery. He has his own vineyard. So I work with growers together. And then the rest is just visiting and working together and finding the right moment, finding the right date. Because it's a small lot, you can apply very quickly a decision. If you have a 20-acre field or 10-acre field, it's much harder to quickly react. And
right.
So that's what we do.
How much land would this production come from, if you were to say?
This was from 1.25 acres.
1.25 acre. For 2,400 bottles. Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. So it's been sitting, and well, tell me about it. So what's in it?
It's 100% Merlot.
Nothing else is in this wine.
Nothing else is in this wine. Yeah.
You didn't go down to the store when no one was looking and, quickly stick a little jug wine in there.
I work very pure, I think, very traditionalist. From what you do with your wines, I feel you should express the way the grapes grow in the vineyard and not manipulate them too much. Let it express, and by letting it slowly develop, for example, when you do a fermentation on the skin, the maceration, this is called a 31-day maceration. So you have these skins together with the juice, or at the one stage when it turns into wine, with the wine for 31 days. So can you imagine how much flavor comes from the seeds, the skin, and that's there's a mark character, ultimately that's, I think, important, which is sometimes lost in, again, commercial winemaking, where you lose the real character of the wine.
So those 31 days, an average wine, say in a mass-produced market, 500,000 cases going out to the average American, how many days is it on there?
Five days.
5 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get just the fruit.
Boom.
And color, that's all they're interested in. But you don't get the layers of texture, the velvet flavors. Also, they wouldn't have the velvet flavors because the grapes are not at this ripe.
Right.
So you have to have ripe fruit to do this. Otherwise, you would have a mouth-puckering, astringent wine.
Who decided when to pick? You for this?
That's myself.
You did it.
Yeah. Well, and all the decisions ultimately, it's my decision when the grapes come in. It's a collaboration between the vineyard manager and myself. That, of course, you discuss what is the weather forecast, but at the end, it's the risk is my decision, and that's for all Wilfer wines or for any of the wines.
Just outstanding. I'm going to toast you just on the nose. Unbelievable. Well, here we go. Wow. Oh my God. It just doesn't stop. It just keeps going on and on.
It coats your whole mouth.
I know this is a tannin. Let me say this right. I know there's tannin in this wine, but it is not a tannic wine. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
It's there, but I'm not doing this.
No. It's the greatest challenge for a winemaker, is especially when you make a wine like this, which should age 30 years, 35, 40 years.
Wow.
You want to make something that ages, so it has to be packed with a backbone that can age. But you also, these days, you have to make wines that are fairly early, sellable, because people want to drink them. Not everybody wants to buy a bottle and lay it down for 5-10 years.
After this article, they will. You're going to be all sold out with people wanting to do exactly that for this wine.
No, it has gone very well.
Unbelievable. Just amazing. This wine is unbelievable. This wine is definitely drinkable tonight. This wine is also going to last, as you say, it's like 20 years or more.
Well, those whole tri-sherry flavors which come with aging, where finally the alcohol esterifies with the acidity, and you get even another burst of aroma, where the tannins will get a little softer with time, and again you get a bit more, maybe orange peel, you get some nutty flavors with time. They're not there yet. So that's where this is great. In 10 years, there will be a whole nother layer.
That will appear.
That will be even additional to what you have.
So why don't you hold back some of the wine and only sell a small portion of it, and then lay it aside? Certainly the price will go up, but when you see the wine's got greater complexity, or what's your thoughts?
I will certainly keep, 10%, 5% of it.
That's all.
But at the end, it's the wine business, which means it has to be sustainable. You can, I think wineries were started like a hobby where just money goes one way, for example, which a lot of wealthy people start buying a winery, but it's not functioning as a business.
Right.
And a hobby can only last so long before you lose interest. So it has to be a business that carries itself, and that's how I try to approach, any of the wineries I work with. It has to make sense. The crop level has to make sense to what quality of wine you achieve, what price you get at the end. It makes no point creating something that can't sustain itself in the long run.
Right. Well, this is an absolutely amazing bottle of wine, and this would be terrific. So we can build a nice cellar in the hillside in back of the house, as we were discussing earlier. Load it up with these, set it aside for years, and then come back to it. But just amazing. And look at the legs on this thing.
Yeah. The specialty too is this was 50% new oak.
Oh, that was my question. Where did the oak come from?
It's all French oak.
All French oak.
Yeah, only French oak, which is more delicate. American oak is nice, but it has a
heavy,
strong coconut direction character, which is I like to make again a balanced wine.
What kind of toast do you have in your barrels?
I like
Light?
medium plus.
Medium plus?
Like a toastiness. I like those. At the end, it's hard to say this mineral character that you get in this wine, which is very much a right bank trade in Bordeaux. Comes the toastiness of the oak. It comes the way our grapes ripen on Long Island with the ocean breeze. The slow ripening. It's not like a hot climate where it goes very fast. And so the combination of the long skin maceration, again, gives this mineral, flinty character that makes this a very classic Merlot.
But it's not overly.
No, not
it's very sotto voce. It's very subtle. It's very delicate.
It needs to be in harmony.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, whenever I think of flintiness, I'm always thinking of a wine from Grave or something like that, and it's just that's predominant. That hits you immediately. I think you have to look for that in here.
Well, you get that's a good point actually, because it is ultimately that's the key of Long Island, that we are much further south than Bordeaux, so you do get more fruit. Yet we have the mouthfeel similar is there to Graves, but we have more fruit can be there,
right? Which
balances that, so it doesn't exactly appear like a wine, sort of a very hard mineral wine from Graves.
Yeah, which I don't. Yeah. Frankly, that's not my.
Well, it varies from year to year.
Yes, it does. It does.
They make great. It's the vintage variations which will keep things interesting too. So.
This is just an absolute fabulous wine. I got to thank you.
Thank you.
Just terrific. We got about 2 minutes left. Is there any comments you want to make right now regarding all this wonderfulness that's going on right now and the explosion in Long Island wine country?
Well, it's working since '92 on Long Island, and I came from Germany. My wife is from Australia. We were thinking of going to Australia here, but I felt I put my energy into this region and have worked very hard, and so have
blood, sweat, and tears.
Many people on Long Island, and finally to get rewarded for the hard work is really rewarding.
It's rewarding, absolutely, and you deserve it. You are extraordinarily well respected by people on our island, certainly from your peers. Certainly from your peers, not only in your winemaking ability, but also as a person, because you're a pleasant, wonderful person to be with. You never have a bad thing to say about anybody, especially to their face. But you never have a bad thing to say. No, I'm kidding, but you're a wonderful person to be with. And before this sounds like an obituary, I just want to say thank you very much for staying here on Long Island.
Thanks.
It's absolutely wonderful. And I don't think I'll be spitting this, but it's amazing. The bouquet just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
This should be decanted, actually. One should open it up. It's really a wine you want to swirl. You want to do the swirling and let it open up. Because I make the wine like this. It takes time to open up. It's like an artichoke that years and years will have to peel away until you get to the heart of the wine.
Right. Yeah. There is one thing that could work very well with this. Cheese. I could see having a conversation with you with nice, delicious, different kinds of cheeses to just augment this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is like a port, but it's got that kind of a character that the flavors are so complex and wonderful that just a nice...
There's a voluptuousness about the wine, and that's what makes it interesting.
Leave my wife out of this. Well, anyway, again, we're just about out of time.
Yeah.
And I look forward to having you back for more shows, and we'll certainly get together and enjoy some wine and food together in good conversation.
We're just creating a website so people, because it's so rare, you can find it at the Grapes of Roth. And there's my plug, but it's exciting. It's my first wine, and finally it's on the market.
I'm glad for you.
Thank you.
To the Grapes of Roth. It's tough to end this show right now. Very difficult to end this show right now, but I've got to tell you, with a mouthful of the Grapes of Roth circling all around my tongue and my palate, I want to bid you adieu and say to you very much that I look forward to seeing you again and enjoy all of nature's bounty right here on Long Island, especially our wonderful Long Island wines. Dr. Pass is saying, whatever you do, do it with passion. Toast.
Cheers to that.
Long Island wine.